Hey, fourth grade. It is week 2 of our 3-week mini unit, and we are talking about sustainability. What is sustainability? Well, we talked about this last time. It is the way you can make something last for a really long time. And when we talk about it, we're talking about mostly the earth. How can we make the earth last a long time so it's healthy for our next generations to come, right? And we talk about the built environment and sustainability within something that's built. It could be a space, a building, a house, a ballpark, whatever. So last week we were measuring sustainable places by using the Living Building Challenge. Okay, the Living Building Challenge, it's an organization that helps guide engineers and architects to create sustainable spaces. So there are 7 petals of sustainability that the Living Building Challenge defines, okay? So water, energy, place or site, health and happiness, beauty, equity, and materials. Okay. Oh, I wanted to tell you guys, we're doing something different this week. We are going to start choosing from the Padlet a piece of artwork or the assignment that we really like, and you get a prize. So this week, we were really impressed with Ani Rollerson's work. Okay, so Ani is going to have to choose from, well, she won't have to choose from, but she may choose between one of these cool stickers and one of my awesome homemade earrings, because that's what I've been doing for the past year, making tiny little food earrings. I don't know. Okay, Miss Young, let's get started with this week's lesson.
Hi, fourth grade. Welcome back. And for some of you, seriously, hi, welcome back. Welcome back to the building. So we have been working on this driving question: how do artists and scientists make the built environment sustainable? And our learning target for this week is: I can describe the role an engineer has in making a space sustainable. So what do you think you know about engineers and what they do? Take a minute, take a pause. When you get something in your brain, press play. So an engineer is someone who designs and builds things that solve problems. And engineers are super important in sustainability because they can make the built environment sustainable by preserving natural resources in their plans for their buildings. They can make sure things are cost efficient and support human and natural environments together. So an engineer is a very important role in sustainability. For this lesson, we're just going to take a little sneak peek at engineers. Next year, we're going to be doing a whole unit about engineering. So on our sneak peek, we'll learn that engineers have to figure out 3 things before they start working. So the first thing they need to figure out is, what is the problem that needs to be solved? Then, who has the problem? Finally, why is it important to solve? What, who, why? Ms. Papa is going to tell you about an engineer that does amazing work in South Africa. And as she tells you about him, think about those 3 things I just listed. What is the problem? Who has the problem? And why is it important to solve? All right, Ms. Papa, tell us about it.
Okay, so engineers, architects, along with a whole team of people, they work together to plan, design, build sustainable places, right? Okay, let's look at an example of an engineer who is totally awesome. Okay, so this guy, his name is Douglas Guy. Yes, I said this guy, and his last name's Guy. Cute. Okay, so he was born in New Kensington. Yes, that's here in Pittsburgh. So he was an activist first before he was an engineer. So he was leading demonstrations against South African apartheid. He was chairman of the Black Action Society at the University of Pittsburgh, and this was in 1976. apartheid. Miss Young, will you please tell us about this? And then I will continue talking about Mr. Guy.
Demonstrating against apartheid? What is apartheid? Well, you kind of would know a little bit what it looks like because we know that in the United States, before the 1960s, our country was super segregated. White people and Black people weren't allowed on the same parts of the bus. They weren't allowed to use the same water fountains. Sometimes they weren't allowed to be in the same restaurants. It was totally garbage. Well, in South Africa, something like this was going on as well, but it was like even worse, right? So in 1948, a new government took over in South Africa, and they created this rule of apartheid, which means separateness or apartness. So they decided that they were going to rank everybody by their race or their color, and they were going to separate them all over the country. And the goal was to give the white people the better resources. So first thing they did, they took land from everyone and it was like 80% of the land and gave it to the white farmers. Okay, so they would like say, nope, you can't live there. Nope, you can't live there. No, you're going to live somewhere different. And I got to tell you, the white people were the minority. There were less of them, but they were getting way, 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 way more stuff. Okay, so they pushed all of the Black people and people of color to the outskirts of town, and they had to live in these kind of like shanty towns. Sometimes they didn't have electricity. Sometimes they didn't have running water. Some other laws were made, like you weren't allowed to marry someone of a different race, and you weren't allowed to leave your like the place where you lived unless you like carried a pass with you. If you were white, you didn't have to do that. If you were a person of color, you had to do that. So basically, it was crazy. And people all over the world were protesting this, including Douglas Guy from Pittsburgh. He was protesting this. Basically, this horrible system, it finally ended through the influence of Nelson Mandela, who eventually it ended, but not until 1994, which is insane because I was in middle school. Like, this was not long ago, right? So, but just like in South Africa, like in the United States, the racism is still persisting there. So the haves and have-nots are still really unbalanced, even like, 25 years later. So
thank you, Miss Young. Okay, so Douglas Guy, he visited South Africa in 1995. That was 1 year after apartheid ended. But like Miss Young said, just because it ended doesn't mean society just snaps out of it, right? So most whites still lived in spacious homes, shopped at modern malls, and most Black people continued to inhabit what he called shacks in township slums, and they picked up supplies from neighborhood stalls. So he teamed up with this lady that he knew from engineering. Her name is Lilia Ann Abram. And she's actually one of the first African-American women to earn a PhD in environmental and chemical engineering. So they began to investigate what South Africa needed in the way of clean water systems, waste management, that's like garbage and recycling, and pollution control. Guy and Abram, set up a company called PEER. It stands for Pollution, Environment, Community Development, and Energy Resources of Africa. So while this organization PEER, it hits many of those petals that we've talked about, I really noticed the equity piece. Okay, so in their mission statement, they say, our emphasis is on empowering poor communities in Africa and the developing world to take charge and control of their livelihoods in a responsible manner. Okay, so Guy Douglas, he said that this project, where he went to South Africa to make all these sustainable homes for those who needed them, he said it was personal. So he remembered how hard it was. It was really hard for his family to find a decent place to live back in New Kensington. That was in the 60s. So his mother supported him and his 4 brothers. She was cleaning houses for affluent white people, rich white people, right? And she was also working as a nurse. So she was busy, right? She was doing her best. She had 4 kids and 2 jobs. Okay, so they lived near Alcoa. This is an aluminum plant. And they wanted to escape the noise and the smoke and the smog, but they couldn't afford to move without government assistance. So it's pretty wild that the places that are most affordable to live are like by coal companies or aluminum factories or whatever, okay? Because of all the pollution, the noise, no one wants to live there. So unfortunately, those who can't afford to buy a place far away from the pollution, they're just stuck there. So this was motivation. He remembers this, and this was motivation to help those out because he knew what it was like to live in those conditions. Okay, so now, instead of protesting in the streets, he is demonstrating ways to build decent, affordable, energy-efficient housing for those South Africans who remain at the bottom of what is now a democracy. It's like our country, right? But there's still people that have been pushed down for so long that they're struggling to get out. So this is what his motivation is. He's going to help these people live the lives that they deserve. Okay, remember what Miss Young was saying that engineers think about before they start working? What is the problem that needs to be solved? Okay. Who has the problem? Why is this important to solve? Okay. Think about that. Maybe jot it down and we'll talk about it in class. Also, in the Let's Practice down below, watch the read aloud and identify what the problem that was needed to be solved, who had the problem, and why it was important to solve, okay? So you're going to do it for the stuff we just talked about, and you're going to do it for the read aloud, okay? So enjoy the story. It's really cool, and I'll see you at Live Times. Okay.